Alright, AP Human Geography. I decided to just fire up a video and get the rest of our notes taken care of. We're down so close to the finish. Might as well just make it done, and that'll save us a little bit of class time for some other things. Alright, so we finished up in class talking about mental maps, and then we're going to shift gears here into one of our last topics that we'll talk about, and that is world regions. You've already been introduced to some definitions of large regions. You've got kind of a big continent-looking map over there on the side that, under some definitions, we could refer to those continents as regions. You did your mapping assignment that had you break the world into in various regions as well. It's kind of like debate as to, is there the official set of world regions? And when we talk about these large ones, and really, no. The bottom line is that it's kind of, the regions are in the eye of the beholder. So yeah, lots of different versions of what are large regions. Okay. Subregions. So the idea there, it talks about shared characteristics, but distinctive in ways. So we can think of, like, if we're thinking of, like South America as a region, we can look at Brazil as being a subregion. It has a lot of the cultural characteristics, and some of that having to do also with geographic characteristics, climate, and just the basic geography. But Brazil, some of you know, maybe some of you don't know, but was originally colonized by Portugal, and so Portuguese is still the official language of Brazil, where in most of the rest of South America, also known as Latin America, those areas speak Spanish, which is a connector back to when Spain ended up colonizing large parts of South America. And so, the shared characteristic is, yes, they're on the same, continent, if you want to think of it that way. They are in the same large region, but there are things that are very distinctive about each, and that's where we get into that whole sub-region descriptor there, okay? Smaller regions, going from large to sub to smaller. A lot of times when we start looking at smaller regions, that's what we're thinking, like Pacific Northwest, that kind of thing. And so yes, we are talking about physical geography at that point for the most part, and kind of we're talking about mountainous, we're talking about coastal, we're talking about kind of more like plains or plateau land, that sort of thing. Okay? And then you can also have some of these other areas, very similar to what we were talking about well, I think it was just yesterday. I guess, I'm looking at my clock. Is it still today? Not quite really. But when we were talking about, formal and functional regions, there's a little bit of kind of almost some crossover here. These are other ways that you can kind of define as a smaller region. And then kind of an important one to remember is one place can be part of many regions, subregions. You think about, again, if we're going to talk about that vernacular, Pacific Northwest, and think of that as a kind of a smaller region, or maybe, or it could be possibly defined as a subregion, but then we're also part of a large region, whether some definitions would say just North America is a large region. Some might split it up into, North America, and into Western America, Eastern America, North America, kind of that sort of thing. So yeah, you can have just one chunk of land, one area, and it can be defined all over the place in terms of being part of a large region, but then also being a region and a subregion all in itself. Okay. And luckily we don't have to know all the ins and outs of that, but we do want to know the general idea that one place can fit into many of those definitions. Okay. All right. And then that brings us to, I think, our last section. I'm just going to take you kind of through a fairly quick march through this. And that is geospatial data. And this really kind of gets into, well, I'll give you a definition, okay? Info that when we talk about can be connected to a specific place. And a lot of what we talk about in this area is getting into, some of it is good old-fashioned field observation, field work, and people literally getting on the ground in an area, but a lot of it actually gets very technological. And this is where we really start to see a lot of modern and even still currently emerging technologies that are giving us a better understanding of just that whole geospatial picture, and just the way our planet is laid out, and the way the this land that we live on, the way it is arranged for us. Okay, let's see how we're going to obtain that geospatial data. We're going to look at what one, two. We'll look at a few different ways that this happens. So here we go. Yeah, it's where it's a good thing. So you can pause the button. If I'm going too fast, you can just pause and you just wait for me out. So I mentioned field work, and this is just the good old fashioned. You're out there in the field, with your camera, with your notebook, that sort of thing. It can involve talking to people who live in an area and getting their their take on life and their perceptions and how their life is influenced by the environment that they live in. Basically just going through the whole interviewing process. Talks about land surveys there and using surveying equipment to get a sense of elevation and different kind of elements of the landscape that way. All right. So field work is definitely one way that we can obtain that geospatial data, and that is the old-fashioned way. Uses of technology are where things have really been headed. And so one of them there, global positioning systems. This started out as some fairly unique kind of software, and now it's, you've got it on your phone. A lot of cars nowadays have it built in, and as we saw pop up in one of our vocab terms, GPS is what determines for us an exact location. There's nothing relative about it. We're getting the absolute. And so, it's using satellites to kind of triangulate and give us an idea of where we're at, and then allow, and then give us directions. That's how most of us know GPS. It's like, well, that's that thing that tells me how to, get from point A to point B, and tells me what streets to use, and, how long it's going to take, and, all that kind of stuff. And you don't get any of that without the use of those satellites. That's what's giving the ability to make all those kind of predictions as far as, how many miles it is. That's the easy one. But, trying to make a prediction, based on current traffic patterns and that sort of thing, as to how long it's going to take you to get from point A to point B. That's all your GPS. All right. And it gives us every day, every morning I jump in the car and I hit it. And I know which way I'm driving, but I like to just be aware. Is there an accident? Do I need to take an alternate route this morning? Is there something else going on that is slowing up my drive? I just want to know, and now I'm used to it. And I actually feel kind of lost if I'm driving without my GPS. Not literally lost, but just, it's like, I don't have my information I'm used to having. So we become very spoiled by having that geospatial data just right there at our fingertips whenever we want it. But technology, it's there to help us. All right, remote sensing. This isn't something you and I would be using on much of a day-to-day basis. It is that idea of collecting digital images as part of the geospatial data that we use to understand our environment, the places that we live. And like it talks about there, satellite images and the quality of those satellite images, and even aerial photography has just really exploded in about the last 40, 50 years. Now we're kind of getting into just all this high def kind of imaging that we can have, and now we're moving into 3D imaging and virtual and all that kind of stuff. So all of it has helped get us a better picture. That data that we have is more accurate, is more lifelike, and gives us a better sense of our planet, okay, and our landscape. GIS, Geographical Informational System. And this is what this one, just want to think about. When we talk about GPS, when we talk about remote sensing, we're relying a lot on satellites, and then, with remote sensing, throwing some photography on top of that. When you get to to GIS, here's where we're really focused on a lot of computer applications, okay? That's the difference. Geographical information systems aren't having kind of reliance on on satellite technology. Instead, they're just gathering sources from all kinds of different places, and then usually kind of doing some analysis and some organization and making it easily accessible to geographers and others who are using data to kind of further their knowledge of various aspects of whether it's human geography or the landscape in general. All right. And I think we get here into our last topic. And again, we kind of looked at these, and I guess actually did pretty good with these right out of the when we were doing our practice quiz, and that is the difference between quantitative and qualitative data. When we look at that geospatial data, we're usually going to be getting it in a couple of different ways. The quantitative is going to a lot of times tie in more with that GIS kind of information, measured and recorded using numbers. I mean, it's something that is the defining point of something being quantitative, is that it revolves around numbers. Okay, you look over at that population pyramid off there to the right, something you're going to get very used to studying. You're going to be experts at these when we get into Unit 2. But that data that little graph is displaying for you there is all based on numbers. It's based on ages and numbers of males versus females. And all these as pretty much in reference to the overall population for Taiwan that's representing there. Yeah, it's quantitative because it's all based on numbers. There's no feels like that kind of a thing with this. It's hard cold facts, and you can back it up with those numbers. So yeah, some other examples there. If you are looking at data that is showing the distribution of people in a country or a region, state, whatever it might be, and they're categorizing them by income. You've got your base defined as wealthy. You have your high income earners. You have your middle class. You've got your kind of middle lower class. That sort of a thing. And you'd be doing that based on the actual money they make per year. You've got numbers you're working with, and then you can look at those numbers of people, and you can figure out those distribution ratios and go from there. All right. Well, and like I mentioned already, GIS is where you're going to see the greatest use with a lot of that quantitative data. Qualitative, yeah, there you got interviews, documents, archives. It's kind of like almost everything else. Okay, visual observation to include photography, things like that. Where this one gets qualitative to me, it's mushier because as soon as you start talking about interviewing someone and taking a look at written archives, you're going to start getting into points of view. You're going to start getting into reality based on someone's perception, based on their life, based on their experiences. You are getting into areas that are a little bit more opinion based, or areas that are driven by emotions, both positive and negative. And so when we get into qualitative data, yeah, you're getting into, you're kind of walking a little bit more of a minefield in terms of, how accurate is this, and how much can I just rely on it versus, quantitative data, which is kind of just like automatic. Okay. I look at the bookcase example down there at the bottom. And I mean, there's some things that you could sit there with someone and say, you could say it's made of wood, and they'd be kind of like, "Are you sure? Is it solid wood, or is it press board?" I mean, you get that. It's built in Italy. Well, I mean, is there proof of that? Is someone just trying to say it's built in Italy just to try to make it more expensive? It's deep brown. Well, one person's idea of deep brown. What does that mean? It's super brown. It's dark brown. What does that mean? And people are going to, that kind of golden knobs, and the little drawers down there. Are you sure that's not golden? Maybe it's brass, I mean, there's everything you could go on this, all right? It smells like oak, that smells like walnut to me. It's all mushy, okay? There's very little that you can, what we could talk about as being quantitative on that bookcase are the measurements of it, okay? It's this wide, it's this tall, it's this deep, because all of that, bam, 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 it's all numbers, all right? But pretty much everything else about it, yeah, it's all qualitative, all righty? And And it does. It revolves around, how us humans view something, which is why we end up there with that idea that it puts the human in human geography. What a nice little way to finish off Unit 1, okay? Just kind of wrap it all up, kind of where we started talking about human geography in this one. And yeah, that gives you a full, complete set of notes. So when I talk to you in class about a test date, that's kind of your way of knowing these notes need to be in your notebook by then. And you need to have a complete set of notes, summaries, left column, everything looking beautiful so that you can get yourself a 100% notebook check score. All right. But that will cover us, folks. One unit almost down. We'll call it down when we've got our test out of the way, but we're getting there. All right. All right. Take care. See you in class.